My name is Victoria Hayes, and at 35 years old, I believed family was something you showed up for no matter how inconvenient, expensive, or painful it became. That belief carried me across oceans and time zones when my younger sister announced her wedding, and I spent months helping from afar, convinced that love and loyalty would eventually be returned in equal measure. Living in Sydney while my family remained in a small American town was never easy, but I tried my best to stay connected. Whenever there was a problem, I was the one who answered the phone, sent money, offered solutions, and rearranged my life to help. Over the years, I became less like a daughter and more like an emergency contact that everyone depended on, but rarely appreciated. When my sister Emily got engaged, I was genuinely thrilled for her. She called me late one evening, laughing and crying at the same time as she showed off her engagement ring. I congratulated her, listened to every detail of the proposal, and immediately began making plans to attend the wedding no matter what it cost. A few weeks later, my mother called with what she described as a small favor. The wedding vendors required someone with strong financial standing to sign the contracts, and because I had the best credit score in the family, she asked me to help. Trusting them completely, I agreed without imagining that decision would eventually change my life. Over the following months, I signed agreements for the venue, catering company, florist, and photographer. The deposits alone cost thousands of dollars, and the remaining balances would be charged after the wedding. Everyone assured me it was simply paperwork, and that the family would handle the final payments when the time came. As the wedding planning continued, I noticed something strange. Important discussions happened without me, group messages excluded me, and details about events reached me only by accident. Whenever I asked questions, the answers were short and distant, but I convinced myself everyone was simply busy with preparations. Despite the growing discomfort, I booked expensive flights, reserved a hotel room, purchased a thoughtful wedding gift, and used precious vacation days from work. I told myself that family relationships were worth effort, even when the effort seemed to flow in only one direction. The day before the wedding, I arrived exhausted but hopeful. My messages received brief replies, nobody suggested meeting beforehand, and there was no excitement about my arrival. Still, I carefully prepared for the ceremony, believing everything would feel different once I saw everyone in person. The wedding venue looked beautiful on the afternoon of the ceremony. Guests laughed together, music floated through the air, and decorations covered every corner. As I approached the entrance carrying my gift, I imagined finally sharing a special day with the people I loved. Instead, my mother stepped directly into my path and blocked the doorway. Without greeting me or asking about my journey, she quietly informed me that I should leave. Confused and shocked, I thought there had been some mistake, but her expression made it clear there was none. When I reminded her that I was Emily's sister and had traveled halfway around the world to be there, she responded with cold indifference. Then, in front of another guest, she referred to me as a distant relative rather than her daughter. In that moment, I realized this exclusion had been planned long before I arrived. The betrayal hurt more than I can properly describe. I had invested my time, money, and heart into supporting this wedding, yet I was being treated like a stranger. Standing outside those doors, I finally understood that the problem was never distance. It was that I had never been valued the way I valued them. Rather than creating a public scene, I placed the gift by the entrance and walked away. Every step back to my car felt heavy, but beneath the heartbreak was a growing sense of clarity. For the first time, I stopped trying to earn a place in a family that had repeatedly pushed me aside. Back at my hotel room, I reviewed every wedding contract I had signed. The numbers were staggering, with tens of thousands of dollars still outstanding. Each invoice carried my name, my signature, and my responsibility, despite the fact that I had been excluded from the event entirely. That evening, I received a call from a relative who had witnessed what happened. She expressed outrage, confirmed details I never knew, and reminded me that being related to someone does not give them unlimited access to your generosity. Her words helped me see the situation more clearly than ever before. The following day, I contacted each vendor professionally and calmly. I explained that I would no longer authorize payment for an event I had been denied access to and requested that the invoices be redirected to the people who hosted and benefited from the wedding. There were no threats, no arguments, and no drama, only a firm decision. When my family discovered the financial responsibility had shifted back to them, The phone calls began immediately. Some appealed to guilt, others appealed to tradition, and a few attempted emotional pressure. Yet every conversation revealed the same truth. They were more concerned about the bill than the way they had treated me. My sister eventually reached out asking for financial help, but even then her message focused on her difficulties, rather than acknowledging the hurt she had caused. Reading her words, I realized that apologies without accountability are simply requests for forgiveness without change. Weeks passed, and the consequences of their choices spread through the community. People learned what had happened, questions were asked, and carefully maintained appearances began to crack. The truth required no exaggeration because the facts alone were powerful enough. One unexpected message arrived from my father. For the first time in years, he admitted he had failed me and confessed that remaining silent at the venue was one of the greatest regrets of his life. It did not erase the past, but genuine accountability carries a weight that excuses never can. Over the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself instead of repairing relationships that only existed when I was useful. Therapy helped me understand how often I had confused sacrifice with love, and how frequently I had accepted less than I deserved in exchange for temporary approval. Today, I look back on that wedding not as the day I lost my family, but as the day I finally recognized my own value. Sometimes the strongest decision is not fighting harder for a seat at someone else's table, but building your own and surrounding yourself with people who are genuinely happy to see you there. Please subscribe and share our channel. We make videos for you, and your support helps us continue bringing powerful stories about family, life, resilience, and personal growth. About 8 months after the wedding, I received an unexpected message from Margaret Caldwell. She wrote that she had been thinking about everything that happened and wanted me to know that what I endured was deeply unfair. For years I had waited for someone outside my small circle to acknowledge the truth, and seeing those words felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. Margaret explained that the situation had damaged trust between both families in ways that could not easily be repaired. While everyone remained polite in public, the wedding was no longer remembered as a beautiful celebration, but as a painful lesson about honesty, accountability, and the consequences of hiding the truth. Meanwhile, Brooke and Garrett continued attending counseling sessions together. The financial burden from the wedding loan created stress, but the larger challenge was rebuilding trust after secrets and lies surfaced so early in their marriage. They slowly began understanding that problems ignored today often become crises tomorrow. One evening, nearly a year after the wedding, Brooke sent me another message. This time there were no requests for money, no excuses, and no discussions about bills. For the first time, she simply admitted that she had known more than she should have, and that staying silent was something she regretted every day. Her apology did not instantly heal the damage, but it was honest. She acknowledged that being afraid of upsetting our mother had never been a valid reason to abandon her own sister. Reading those words, I realized that accountability sounds very different from an excuse, because it asks for nothing in return. Our conversations resumed slowly after that. We spoke once every few weeks, then once every few days, carefully rebuilding trust one honest discussion at a time. It wasn't the same relationship we once had, but for the first time it felt real instead of transactional. My mother remained silent for a long time, refusing to discuss the wedding with anyone who challenged her version of events. But as months passed and more people learned the truth, maintaining that version became impossible. Eventually, she found herself facing the consequences she had spent years avoiding. Almost 18 months after the wedding, I received a handwritten letter from her. There was no dramatic confession and no perfect apology, but there was something I had never seen before: responsibility. She admitted that she had spent years caring more about appearances than relationships, and that fear had guided too many of her decisions.